I am someone who doesn't look at sympathy or pity uh, as something valuable. I think in society that we look at homeless people and we pity them because many people think that they're better than them. They think that they're above it or they feel bad about the position. But I am afraid of homeless people because they are people still, no different from who I am. The circumstance and situation sometimes, most times, avoidable, but not because of their actions. Avoidable because of the system, the a inability to access resources or tools in order to garner and live their life. It's a bit like the tragedy of a pigeon, domesticated and then abandoned. Would we use such nice terms to speak of that? I would call it neutered. Having all of your fingers clipped off would have been a better outcome than just telling someone that they cannot use their hands at all to feed themselves. That I think that life has been told to me that it's harsh and unfair, and as I've said many times, that I believe that life is plenty fair. I think that individuals say that as a way to do unjust things. That it is not the realm of God that makes the world unjust, but those that crown themselves king and said that God made me king because I am king currently. But those men never really are kings. I watched a film, a movie, A Hidden Life. My girlfriend thought it would be a good film for me, and it was. Um, I liked it. Did I agree entirely? Did I feel the message? Maybe I thought that it was a bit too preachy. I think that it wanted to tell a tale that was very nice. I know it was based on true historical events, and it paints another narrative, a perspective. It shows that everyone was human. Not everyone was in agreement. I think that what gets to me is that how much was he really willing? Like even then, was he willing to take away or run away from his family, for his family, with his family, the people there? What were the people like before? I think that in terms and place of peace, there's this thing that nigs at me. Like society has grown distant, but I think it's also because of inherent intelligence. That I often see that my neighbors, I once thought and held in a high regard, but were they truly my neighbors? Did they see me as such? I think that it was I felt more of a hostage to my neighbors than anything else. Like I was supposed to force myself, greet with them, eat with them, but none of them would really understand me or my concessions. The mayor had been something consistent. Why is it a shock when someone disagrees? People say it's random. It says that how did they come to be as such? But I think that it more shows that individuals aren't paying attention. That this was something that could have been avoided with awareness. Many people claim ignorance, and that is true. But once you claim it, It is a one-time deal. I don't believe that you can claim it again. I believe that being unaware and being ignorant are not the same things. One can blind you, can put blinders on, but another asks you that, okay, I've seen what I've seen. Is there anything else that I haven't? That is the point of intelligence. I'm sure I'm confident in what I know, but I know that I'm not reached omnipotence, that I could not command armies or gather wealth or even create or destroy life. So if everything is perfect, then I have to sit there and say that I am not perfect. What am I missing? What am I doing that would not make me as strong? If there's another human that you respect or admire, what makes you different from them? You either have to say that our intelligence is equal and our position should be as such, or you would have to say that there's something wrong or something less than you or something in a position that makes you different. If it is equal, then why don't you get the equal praise? That's really the struggle, especially as a philosopher. I think about it. If I am equal, if I am expected to pay the taxes as equal as any man, then why are these jobs paid less? Why were these jobs ever once important? Why were they ever given these titles? And why aren't we allowed to talk about them? Who keeps deciding who is a man and who is not, and what a man does? I think the least manliest thing that you can do is let another man define what a man is. The whole movie, A Hidden Life, basically can be summed up into you don't want to go to war? Coward. Go die in a war, man. We're all dying in a war. Nationalism, yeah, it's our people, us, and them. It's a bit of it makes me laugh. If it's supposed to humanize those people, in a sense, yeah, well, it does. But it's not the German people that I had issue. It was the racism. I often find that people tolerate the racism, tolerate being around them, or want things to go back. But when someone reveals who they are to you, what are you supposed to do? Raise them in that land, in that place? I asked myself, what would I do? I again said that I do not sympathize nor pity anyone anymore. And I thought, what would I do in that situation? If I knew only what the protagonist knew. Fritz, I think, yeah. I would be him. I cannot make a decision or say claim that I would do something different. That always comes with information, with access, with knowledge. That is the only reason that I would do anything different. Hindsight is 20/20. I think that's why so many people feel confident speaking about events that have already happened, because they know they have timeline, they can have hope, they can perceive things beyond the present situation. I think a philosopher is like a mathematician, an estimated guess. They perceive based on what they have, but realize that they might be lacking other data, other perceptions. They're open to it. Often they can be very correct, but the things that weren't afforded to them, that wasn't made aware to them. They cannot make predictions on. I feel like the reason why philosophy is turned towards this negative aspect in life is because those philosophers that we have coined and deemed as the greatest minds have all been of similar or same stature. We have framed most of the philosophers in the same way, to a point where you have this depressed and I would say revolutionary in mindset and tone. But there is two coins that I've seen when it comes to the revolutionary philosopher. There are those that are actually in midst of devastation, and those that play as such. Those that aren't the direct participants or the first wave of victims, but the second wave or witnesses. People that have a way out, an escape. And yes, it gives them availability to perceive things, to fly around the danger, to be in a helicopter, to view, but never quite experiencing what it was like the first time. It is always imagining as such, having a wide range and tracing it, but they can't perceive it. For they were not there with the initial blast, nor could be there for the first wave of outcry. The fear, the unknown, the reason why time feels like it escapes. Always in a perpetual state, kind of doomed to not know, to assume, to hear, but not quite get it. And I think that reality, that understanding, when you understand that you're not going to understand, is something that really plagues. That's suffering in itself. I think it leads people to want to go to war, to go back to a battlefield, to experience something themselves. Weirdly enough, it like calls to them. But no one is, I think that there's very few individuals that could actually throw themselves into a dangerous position and still not like to, but feel like they need to. See, there's a difference, and it's very subtle, that I've seen those go into positions of war or pain, but it's a selective pain. Like they choose it and say that it's just as hard as another making a decision, but it is a different category. Well, one is voluntarily a choice. It is not necessarily a forced opposition, so their mindset is different. That no matter what you do, you could say that you don't have to do it. You could say, oh, I have to do it. No, you say that this is the choice that you want, but it's not a have to. One who is drafted and one who voluntarily goes still voluntarily goes. You can try to frame it as duty, but it will always make a difference in bitterness, the taste, the flavor. Trying to pose it or frame it as anything higher or lower or even admirable. I took this spot for my brother. Well, that spot didn't have to go to you. I think that's the difference between chosen and not. That it's different. It hurts in a different way. For I could have picked anything else, and yet I was forced into this, and you chose this, and you had everything else. and it hurts. So the philosopher mind tries to, it can understand, it can break down, but it can't truly comprehend. Sometimes, even if you know that an action will happen, you know that it will lead you to a different way. That happiness, that joy, that idea, that it's even for an extra day of peace, it could mean a lifetime. It could mean a wedding or a kiss or the birth of a child. But no, watching the volunteers show with a smile and parade themselves, or even talk about how bad or the issues or the struggles, it bothers me. It annoys me. For I warned of the fight. I could not choose not to. That like it would have made more death. It would have made more struggle, more pain. That there was no place to run, no place to escape. All my life that I've known, that I've tried to be the most logical, and I've developed into a form of a very logical being, even emotionally intelligent. But with all of the things that I have, I still cannot escape. And it's not illogical, it's very logical. The indifference, the struggle of indifference. I think that if someone could acknowledge or listen to me and truly understand that a lot of the Western philosophers, I feel, are indifferent to a plight, a struggle that they themselves cannot understand, for it is overlooked. How someone can think of you as so ugly or just different. The melanin in my skin, walking around the street, I often feel that I am different. It is knowledgeable, it's understood, it's known that I can't go anywhere. That whatever history or problems will always be made aware. That someone can hide their gender, hide their nationality, depending on the skin color. Someone can even be of my same descent, but just lighter tone, hairstyle, wig, cosmetic, and they can have a completely different story, or at least a more positive, uplifted route. That I know that I'm on the bottom of the barrel. That I know that anywhere else is up. Everywhere else is up, but realistically it's down. I would be lying to myself. I would tell myself that these are on equal footing, that these are places and names and people understand, but they don't. How simple it is, how I have to tear myself apart to be strong, to recognize that I am not broken, that I'm waiting for a game of catch up, to sound elitist, to say, no, everyone else is just waiting or walking, and I have to sit. Imagine running laps, 10, 20, 30, being so fast. At some point, that people cannot even perceive you with their eyes or pay no attention to you. So you have to sit and wait. They say do 10 laps and you do 30. And people are on the 5th and 6th. And you sit. Because you do not want to do more than what you should. You don't know if you're going to burn out. You don't know your own strength or efficiency. You never really tested truly. You're tested with a scale that isn't your own. You don't know. You don't know if maybe you're just really fast and that's it. The worst thing, going back to what I was saying earlier, the worst thing about these philosophers, about those that volunteer, those that have a way out, it makes all the difference, because it's, you look at yourself, or at least I look at myself, and say, if I had a quarter of the intelligence, the perception, the aesthetic, I would be one of the top celebrities. My words, my thoughts would have been famous. And there are those that would disagree with me no matter what I had said. That it's actually a superpower on its own. That no matter what I say, someone will go against it, will perceive it as negative, will perceive everything that I say as wrong. And there will be those that know what I say is right and still perceive it as wrong. That they would hear the words and instead of truly digesting it, they would frame it or praise it as if I was a child saying something incredibly impressive, when it's so simple that the praise feels like an insult. That what I said was something exotic, something marvelous. It frustrates me with professors and teachers and friends and even past relationships. I think that there are plenty of geniuses in the Black community. That it leads us to drug use and alcoholism. For imagine your brain is running so efficiently that your understanding of the world and understanding that people will not accept you. That if you start to accept others like you, then you will be chopped down. And the only things that you do know is that you mildly don't want to die yet. Just yet. Maybe something changes. Maybe something improves. Maybe you want to know as much as you can. So when you go, wherever you go, you have stories to tell. I think worse than getting nothing out of it. The greatest opposition that you could do to this injustice is to live, to be around, to always remind someone that this is not right. See, I am a harbinger of justice as I live. A reminder to everyone that their racism and their acceptance of racism, their acceptance of those actions, that they're complicit, that they're just as complicit. That you might speak sweet words to yourself to say that you didn't know, and that you, and people know that they cannot prove it, but that voice in your head that speaks, I am there. Like I play that part. What do you truly believe? What do you truly know of yourself? I believe that I know that more people are intelligent, that everyone is intelligent. For how could anyone live this long and not have a frame of intelligence? That ignorance is, it's something that I think that people rely on as a place of saying that I did not know. And that is seen even in our society as a viable excuse. But I did not know can really show, did you try to know? What did you do? That I think that people even view limitations as a viable excuse sometimes. Like how far did you really travel to hear these voices? How long did you fight? What was an acceptable time to listen to people? When was the acceptable time to cut it off, to stop? When was it that you had become aware, and then why was it not important to push? Sometimes I even, what I even realized, and I had spoken that my life was always in service of another. I realized that that was how I was raised. I still feel the cold press of slavery. My back aches, my neck hurts. Though there's no logical reason other than the biological systemic oppression. You would say that it's illogical, but it's actually logical. I said it is passed down trauma that I know why I feel this ache, this pain. I know that the science would back it up, as well as a spiritual sense. That I've been born into servitude, not servitude, in submission of another. But the truth is that I have not fully submitted, nor has anyone. That I just feel the pain, and I need the reparations to resolve it. That this is something that'll never just go away. That it will always come because I had never raised my voice or spoken it truly. Like I had spent my entire life in servitude of someone else. My mother passed that down to me, but that came from somewhere, and I can always tie it back to chattel slavery. It's so bad that I cannot envision what it would be like having a good mother or father. Having both my mother and father in my life, I could not imagine being treated well by my mother and father, by my family. That I cannot envision a life without the pain, without the racism. That all I can really think about is that every mentor that I'll ever meet or touch or have touched has been tainted by white supremacy, by racism. That they even once, saying anything bad about a minority group or slurs specifically targeted towards me and my people. That the likeliness that they had said this is over 90%. Almost a guarantee. And those that won't admit it, I would ask. And at first, it would go absolutely not. But then, when really thought about it, you would see that people slowly start to say, well, when I was younger, or when I was this, but it was a long time ago, I don't think of it now, okay, but what did you do to make amends? Well, I simply don't think about it anymore. Is that really a notable distinction, that I don't think about it anymore? Did that really do something to make you no longer a Klansman? I say that if a Klansman never wears the uniform again, does that make him no longer a Klansman? But in the same breath, I could say that I no longer wear the uniform of a military sailor, of a U.S. sailor. but people still treat me as such. When they say, "Thank you for your service," I am still supposed to respond or reply. If I say, "Oh, well, I'm no longer," after my contractual obligation was over, people will still not let me take off that uniform. If I murder a man 20 years ago, 25 years ago, would I still be held accountable as if that man was here today? Or if I had done it today, but today is a new day. I think that the bitter hypocrisy, it's a lot more somber because the truth of the matter is it does not need this a crazy sporadic sense of justice. That things have become over convoluted. The Nuremberg trials was a failure. The civil rights was a failure. The civil rights protests, a lot of these laws and reparations are failures because they're always ignoring the core problem. Band-aids on something that is structurally and fundamentally disturbed. It's not broken. It works just fine. That there's no peace to it. There's an unease, instability, and this is worldwide. That you can see this from every place and every side of society. That I can go to Australia and see the Australian version of white supremacy. Well, it's all of it tied, all of it functionally the same. Incompetence and then an over policing, a hyper awareness. There's you either pick two sides of the coin. That there's not really a way to avoid it. You can literally do nothing and be conscripted to one side or another. And so if you can agree with that hey, you have you had to, you've been forced to, then you said that you did something. So what did you do to make amends? And then you see that nothing really has been done, or things that were told not by individuals who were affected by that direct decision or choice. Like you might have said a racial slur to a black person and then gone to a different black person and said, "Do you forgive me?" And if that black person who accepts your apology, well then he and you are both fools. That is not the individual that you had done this in droves and your mindset towards the whole diaspora. But to that person, it is one thing to say something to that person, but what about that person's life? What about the people around them? What about the people that they did not meet or see because of your action? I think it's cowardice. I think that the only way to truly make amends is go to the person that it would be roughest to see. Go to the person or the place or the position that would be the hardest and the roughest on you, and go do that. Not an action, but go there. That if you say that I changed this person's life, I cannot fix that person's life, then it is your consequence to change the entire world. Or if you say a racial slur to every individual, every black person, then it's your duty, your right, and obligation to go and aid in the freeing of those people. You say, "Oh, I went to a black person and I asked them for forgiveness, and then I went to a Black Lives Matter march." I'll say, well, did the march conclude in the freedom of black people? If that protest has not done it in expedience, if it has not done it in efficiency, if the actions can not by those in high understanding of competency, of leadership at least, can say that this will definitively solve it, and here's how. What proof? What evidence? All you would simply do is just show that you were at a place, you walked around, you said that this was bad and this was wrong, and that was it. It might as well have just went to a Catholic confession and said that I state my sins and give me Hail Marys. That is the equivalent. That you ask of a person that you have broken to figure out how to fix you and therefore break them even further. Ask them to figure out what you would need to feel is better. But sometimes I think the best thing is to realize that you have changed someone's life. So change their life again. Do not take any pride in your action. I don't think I really feel good about going and fixing the things until after. Until that the action is done, I don't feel anything. I feel like it's my duty. And then once it's done, I can look back at it and I can say, yeah, now I'm proud, or even any other lesson or mission. I can look at myself and see how much I had changed. But I'm always expected to praise or clap, feel good stories. But I look into a room and say, who claps? Who's the one that claps? Do they even know what they are clapping about? Sometimes I think that it's more of a silent thing. That someone might not know what was done for them until long after. It's not saying that you have to, you are the defining factor. I'm doing this for them. This is good for them. No, it's not something along those lines. No. It's asking yourself. It's saying that I believe truly in this being the right action. I'm aware that it could lead into more pain for a person that I've caused problems to. But truly, what is their ailment? A doctor might look upon a patient and realize that cancer is their ailment. And maybe they've done the patient wrong in a previous lifetime. But it is the doctor's duty to still perform the surgery the best way that it can, and to inform the patient of the impending doom. Now, if the patient says, hey, I don't trust you, I don't want you to be my physician, then it is your duty to back off, to not cure this ailment, to let them die. If the reason that the patient refuses treatment was because of your action, well, then you have to accept that as such. But it's for you as a doctor to pay that family, to educate oneself, to carry that weight, and to speak of the story of one's mistake. And you should not get any praise, nor the movies should say of how honorable or how well. It shouldn't do a way of defaming you or removing what you have actually done, but let people be a judge of who you are truly if you're going to do those things. Removing crucially, even small details. Employing someone that looks uncharacteristically more attractive, garner sympathy, or even show the people's partners. Oh, look at his wife, look at his children, he's a family man. No, look at him as he was. Was he always a family man? And look at what was deprived. I say that movies have a bad way. If I were a movie director, I would, and I was showing a film, I would speak about the things that possibly could have happened. The things that, if not affected, could have shown. I want to show 6 perspectives when it comes to racism. The perspective of the first one, what actually happened, what could have been in a positive, and what could have been in both negatives. And maybe they flip, they switch. But there's multiple ways to look at this. The perceptions are so many, like colors in a array. And I'm tired of simply seeing something as definitively positive or definitively negative. I'm tired of the critiques being so formulaic and very clear that that's the narrative, even the subtle things. Where my sympathies are supposed to lie, where my critical thinking is supposed to go. But it doesn't allow me to breathe or live without I guess I'm so used to a European perception that those in positions of power have started to understand how they think so well that it almost feels empty to me. I watch a lot of the descendants of colonizers, anime, Japanese, a lot of movies from Western imperialism. It feels like the players are pretty much the same. The power is still rounded up. Those that can administer war and death so easily, and the consequences would fall upon them to place on themselves, and it never really gets done. I watch it because I can tell that it taints that since the consequences never hit, the guilt, the shame, or the healing has never really begun. In anime specifically, it has become such a one of the greatest things that I've ever witnessed, and then subsequently one of the worst things that I've ever got to see. The stories a bit weird. The stories no longer really show meaning or heart. It's beautiful, but it doesn't really go out of any left field, any way that can show a different perception. It doesn't. It keeps this structure, this rigid structure. It feels like everyone's playing the same story. Characters never really change. Aesthetics never really fold. And instead of it improving, it's just kind of weighed over time. When I pleaded for it to grow, it just stifled. That I keep watching, maybe in hopes that one day it'll change, or the very few lingering lights still keep me entertained. But as far as it goes, I look at my skin and I still say, when is there acknowledgement of the world around you? When will a person of character, when other individuals can grow and live and expand, where thoughts and feelings and tears expressed, when the communities that adore and love, when the intermingling, there's a bit, it might be forceful, it might be aggressive, maybe it's not the style, maybe not everyone wants it. I say that I spent a lot of time and I appreciated it, the stories. But then there's this lack of accountability that I also watch those in powerful positions do heinous things and acknowledge the heinous things of their coworkers, and instead of condemning them, tolerate them. I've seen negative workforces in that. And when I see it, I say that it goes deeper into why the works have been getting worse and worse. Because what was once seen as impressive had become the status quo, and people are mad that it is no longer seen as progressive. We all know it's not progressive anymore. It is the status quo, and it becomes a bit regressive, for nothing moves. I don't watch One Piece anymore, not because I don't think that it has good themes, or I honestly do not really mesh well with the story, but the characters, their designs, Usopp being with the racial aspect of the donut lips, still, I often ask myself, was it really that bad to see that, hear it being talked about, and change it? Well, it would throw off the story, would it? Yeah, sure, it would be odd. It would be odd for a second, but then it would become the norm. As Robin and Usopp's melanin, and why couldn't it just be added? I think it gets taken so serious, where it's like these things could be produced, could be shown, could be talked about. A conversation could have been there, but instead, a cop out. And I say that if your own work isn't loved enough to really change, to see that people like that people should never take over a work, but can improve a project, can improve the art. I've seen that people weren't really there. They can't improve it. They can't speak about it. They can't move it. They have to accept it as is. And I accept it as it is. There's not a place for me. It doesn't have a place where I can breathe, or even the jokes. Frieza and Tobirama and Zoro, that these things are talked about, and they're always so humorous, right? To the point where you're always the butt of the joke. Everything that you say is always negative, and somehow you always become the bad guy. Your history always played for laughs. That when people speak about negative histories of the German people, they are speaking obviously about World War II. But all of those people, yes, as well as they have experienced their tragedies and atrocities, that they are obviously the aggressors. That Japan and America, all these Western powers, their tragedies is that they were the aggressor, and they were seen as wrong, or they did terrible things. But my tragedies are victims, always, always. And then when seen as aggressive, it is always with forms of lower intelligence. Always in modern day. Well, before it was seen as smart or tactical to be this aggressor. But now when we are perceived as dumb, as trivial, or we were always like this, boorish, it becomes funny that no, it's not really funny, but it's just always so negative, so terrifying that we are not supposed to have pride in anything. The only time we're supposed to have pride is when we're fighting against a fellow human. We say that we fight against oppression, but I say who's oppressing us. That's not a fun or interesting topic. That the only times that I see black people in any positive thing is when we have to speak of speeches, highly coveted speeches, loving speeches, words so eloquent over a backdrop of music or something that could be akin to a Nike commercial. I think that that's, to finish it off, to cycle it back to my original point, there is a difference between a philosopher that volunteers and a philosopher that is conscripted. That black people have always been conscripted to do these things. And no one really asked what else we would have wanted to do. And I believe that I can speak with a bit of confidence when I say literally anything else. Anything else would have sufficed if it was maintainable and survivable. That we have all tried, that every single one of us had tried to live in any means of a regular life. That we were people had treated us like tools and pawns, supposed to be accepting of a position of stability, stagnation. Not a stable stagnation, I should say. Where all you're supposed to do is show up, work, and leave. Don't breathe, don't talk, don't laugh, don't smile. The only thing that I would want you to do is work. But if we make a joke and it's funny, then we're expected to make jokes every once in a while. But when you joke, you have to cry. But don't cry, don't cry. We're expected to be interesting or witty or wise. But when you're wise, we're not allowed to be dumb. See, when you're wise once, you're only supposed to be wise. But what do I do with my tears? You're not human. You don't have any tears. I look at my white counterparts in philosophy and say that these people could be anyone and anything that they ever wanted to be. When I look at my own life, I know that no matter what I say, no matter what I do, someone is going to pick a fight with me. Someone is literally going to deny whatever I claim, no matter what evidence I have a judge and jury stacked against me, that a jury of my peers are bred by birth to go against everything that I said. Whether they be men of color or men of whiter skin. That they will side with the court. They're going to side with the people that are capable of feeding them and clothing them and giving them a sense of comfort. That my speeches will go to the wayside, forgotten, in books that are read by white men who simply feel like doing something charitable today. And they will rewrite the quotes in almost its entirety and frame it as if it's their own. They might say that I'm quoting another. They might even use my name, but no one will seek to get the quote from the original. For the quote is right there. And the prestige, the picture looking so fine and nice or dandy. Much better than my disheveled look, my depressed, glaring eyes, my eyes that can barely look at the screen, and shame or fear that no one will care about these tapes. That in a way I am consoling myself, putting myself down, but I have no other choice. I was bred to do so. If I am too bright, I am stifled. If I am too dark, I am stifled. I don't know what to be. And when I'm given that quote freedom, I don't know how to act. For I was not allowed to be free. All I known was servitude. And you would think that giving that or saying that you've given that would free me. But that wasn't freedom. That was ripping me from one womb to another womb and then leaving me out to be cold. And when I crawl back, you would say, well, now you're asking for it now. I don't have a blanket nor books to educate me. I don't have someone to explain that what they did was wrong. I had no apology to say that what they had done was wrong and these were the men that had did it. I had no place to put my anger. The people say that I'm sorry that the government did that, but who was in the government? Who was the governing body? Who was the names? And why are these men protected? Well, because the names start sounding familiar. The cousins and half cousins and all of the allies, and that is where I share with the victims of horrifying tragedies, that the names of the perpetrators always seem to convincingly get condensed, and the hands-on perpetrators seem to disappear. They were nobody. Oh, we can't convict all of them. We can't put them all in jail, but they would be so fine to put us all in chains. That all these prisons seem to get filled, but no one can ever empty them. That is always justification to keep us in. I don't know. I know that there are things that I don't know and I don't understand. But I think that for a lack, at least others think, that makes me different from others, is that I don't lack that understanding that I don't know. I literally lack the capability and the time to get to know what I don't know. For I always have to rush and make assessments and judgments in unfair cases that would literally leave me and my family on the side of the road or at the end of a rope. That no one knows that type of pain, not in the severity. And it troubles me so that I have to constantly fight with other oppressed groups to have mine recognized as a different classification. That I am supposed to simply just stand by and accept that this is the same case. Even of other black individuals, the Aboriginal people of Australia. That this is a pain that is so unique to black Americans that it feels like there's no allyship, no growth, no progression. That I'm trying to hold on to culture and history, the only thing that I've ever known. And everyone takes it and treats it like a joke. That I have no place to stand unless I am accepted into white culture, and then I I have to uh, by by critics and censors get told what I can and cannot say about my own lived experience. The only time that I'm allowed on the stage and really feel the freest to talk is when I am amongst someone considered low or just beginning to educate. Not to change them, but to, I guess, entertain, to pass the time, to show them what it's like, what they have to deal with. That there's always going to be someone like me, and they gotta figure out how to stifle and cut out the problem before it ever comes to an actual place or position. Don't hire people like me, where they might be too smart for you to get your quip in, your joke. I'm not exhausted anymore. I'm not confused anymore. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm not even disappointed. I don't know what to call myself. I don't know what to perceive myself as. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe I'm just ambiguous. I don't think I'm empty, but I think I'm something beyond. Maybe I've transcended. Maybe this is what enlightenment is. Doesn't feel quite bad though. With that being said, I'm done.